It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So hype right now. Anything's possible. I'm on mama. I'm on my lady, ma. Anything's possible.
Raina J's back with the vengeance. All the real Celtics fans in attendance. This the truth like 34. This like walking in the garden when you hear the roars. The crowd goes crazy. Most in-depth coverage on the daily. Mainly podcast royalty, the content kings. When you talking about the franchise with 17 rings. Focus like Danny at the deadline. Global but it got a local feel like the red line, the blue line, the green line. Play it in between time. I'ma throw my C's jersey on in the meantime and press play. When the F's done, I can't wait until the next day. Trying to stay in tune with the C's, that's the best way. Melly.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. I want to thank you for making the show part of your daily routine. If you're listening to the podcast on your headphones as you do other things or watching the show on YouTube, really do appreciate you having me as part of your routine. When it comes to the Boston Celtics, I'm John Corrales. I cover the team for the Boston Sports Journal. I've written this book here that I'm holding up on YouTube, Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, which you can get on my website, johncorrales.com, for $30 if you want a signed copy, personalized for you. Please pick one up or just buy it wherever you buy your books. Coming up on today's show, MassLive beat writer Suichi Terada from Las Vegas on the Celtics, talking Summer League with somebody who's there. I did not go to Summer League this year, obviously, but going to talk to him a little bit about what he's been seeing out there. This show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. So, Suichi's the new beat writer at MassLive, joining Brian Robb over there, does great work for MassLive, and is in Las Vegas. We've been talking about Summer League here. I've been talking about Summer League to you. So, let's get someone's perspective who was there and bring in Suichi Terada. All right, Suichi, first of all, welcome to the Celtics beat. I know it's like kind of a delayed welcome, but you kind of slid in at the end of the pandemic, kind of a weird start, but welcome aboard. Welcome to the beat. How's MassLive treating you? It's not a loaded question. You can be honest.
Thank you. Good to be here on the Celtics beat on the podcast in Vegas. A lot of places to be at. MassLive is good though. I think I've been there for like 6 months now, which is kind of crazy,
right?
Because, like you said, like the pandemic, like I pretty much consider like a season 0. Jumping on in the middle of the pandemic. Like you can't consider that a season 1. So it's been hectic. MassLive's been good. Sent me to Vegas, so I have no complaints.
Yeah, no, it's good. They're great over there at MassLive. So so everybody, make sure you're checking out Suichi's coverage. So you're in Vegas. You've been watching this Summer League. Initial impressions. Yeah, let's just start at the top. We saw Aaron Nesmith just blow up in game 2 here. What's your initial impression? What have you seen from him?
I mean, it's a good thing, I think, that they blew out Denver first and foremost, just because they have their starting lineup as guys with NBA experience. I think if they didn't, he kind of be like, oh, what's going on here? But yeah, I mean, Nesmith had a great game. It was weird, it obviously it was kind of a hectic time for Celtics fans in the beat just because of Schroder, and then we got Ime at halftime, so it was kind of a weird game. But every time I looked up, it seemed like Aaron was hitting a 3-pointer, and the numbers kind of backed that up. It was funny too. I think B-Rob was sitting next to me, and we were paying attention to the game, watching it. But obviously, he looks up and he's like, "Is that right? Payton has 12 assists," and we were like, "Yeah. Payton has 12 assists. Aaron has 31 points. He's made a bunch of 3-pointers. Romeo had that crazy dunk." So it is Summer League. I think it's always good to temper expectations, but I think you see things like making 3-pointers in clutch time, like Romeo did against in game 1 against Atlanta. I think you see those things, and you feel a little bit good that they can contribute going into next year, which looks like the Celtics will probably need.
Yeah, like it's kind of fun to see these guys. You're there. I've been to plenty. I skipped this one, but the vibe inside these arenas is kind of interesting to me. You've got this crowd that's kind of in and out, and people coming in, maybe some fans of specific teams, but kind of an in and out crowd. And the guys on the roster some are just not going to be there forever. You don't know what that mix is going to be like. So what have you seen from these guys just on the sidelines, in the practice that you got to see? What are you seeing from these guys, just general vibes like?
I think for the returners, it seems like they're pretty comfortable just in that knowing kind of where they're at, especially for guys like Carson Edwards and Romeo Langford. They've been in the NBA for a couple of years already. I know Romeo's is kind of a strange situation with 50 games in 2 years, but I think there's maybe a level of comfort. I think there's a level of intrigue with Juhan Begaran. I think that's how you said. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And Yam Madar and everything. And I think the one guy who I really was impressed by was Bruno last night. On the Romeo dunk. Just we talked to him a little bit after the game, and I put this in the lead of my story on him. Like, he talks crazy. That's what he says. And you can kind of feel that energy coming from him, which is, I think, is a great sign, just because he was at practice, I believe, on Tuesday, and we saw him. And he's hasn't really met any of these guys. I think he knew like a couple of guys from his Big Ten playing days in Maryland. But otherwise, like, it's mostly strangers, but he was like getting pretty hyped with them. Like, we don't know what his roster situation is going to be like, especially at center. After the Enes Kanter signing, but he seemed very excited to be there. He had a great quote about, you only have so many opportunities to play basketball. You take them every chance that you can get. And I think that's like just a good high energy guy to have in summer league and potentially the season, pending how, obviously Brad Stevens shapes the roster.
Bruno with also an all-time reaction to that dunk. I don't know if you guys could tell in the arena, but the reaction when he turned after that dunk was just spectacular. One of the moments of the summer league. What did it look like in the arena on that dunk?
On that dunk, you know what? It was crazy. I don't know if you remember, but Neesmith had like a similar kind of like, he wanted to go for the poster at the end of the first quarter, but he missed it.
Yes.
And so my initial reaction to the Romeo dunk was like, oh man, we're gonna get 2 missed dunks in a row, because it was just like, I just didn't know like Romeo had hops like that. So I was like, okay. But as he rose up though, it was crazy. I think B-Rob was actually looking down at that moment. So I just go, whoa. I was like, oh my God. Like, no cheering on the press row, but when I see something cool, I will give it like the necessary reaction. And I was like, yo. And then I was like, B-Rob, check the timeline in like 30 seconds. Someone's gonna have to replay on that. And it was just like, it was a lot of Celtics fans got hyped. It was pretty cool to see. Corrales, to your point, like, it was, summer league is weird. You don't get a lot of fans, but there were, a spattering of how, Denver and Boston fans, or a lot of Detroit and Houston fans, just because, the second game was a number 1 versus number 2 pick. But the crowd got pretty into it, which was pretty cool. But my initial reaction was like, oh man, he's gonna miss another one, and Neesmith and Langford aren't gonna feel good. But no, he delivered there. There was I think that was one of the, I think that was like probably one of the best plays of summer league so far.
Oh, I can't imagine one that was better. You're right, though. There was a point where he goes up, and you're like, if you could slow it down and get the breakdown. I don't know if people watch the John Boy baseball breakdowns that he does, which are hilarious. But like, if you could slow it down, there's a point there where he cocks it back, and you're like, he's not high enough for this. What are you doing? Like,
he went up with 2. Yeah. He went up with 2 feet too, right? So I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but no.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, he got them long arms, reached through, and boom. I was like, whoa, hello.
Langford's a new
not
person
something we
now.
normally see from Romeo. Much more with Suichi Terada, including a conversation about Romeo Langford and his time over there in Las Vegas. That's coming up after I tell you about Sweat Block. Now, there are a few things in life that are kind of embarrassing to talk about. People don't like it, but it's okay to discuss it if you're dealing with something like excessive sweating. Now, some people, it happens to them when you're talking in public, when, in situations where you'd really prefer it not to happen. And for a lot of people, they think, well, there's nothing I can do but wear an extra undershirt or wear something that can kind of hide that. But that makes your stuff bulky, and it can mess with your confidence. It gets into your head. Now, you can use Sweat Block Antiperspirant wipes. It is stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You simply apply it at night before you go to bed. The next morning when you wake up, you wash, and then you go about your day without worrying about sweat. It sounds too good to be true, but people have used Sweat Block. You use it once, and they've been good for a week. There have been people who have used it and been sweat-free for days. No more embarrassing pit stains or anything like that. No more picking out shirts based on what will hide your sweat. Use Sweat Block once. Follow those directions. Use it at night. Wake up in the morning, wash it off. Boom, you are good. Now, if you know somebody who's been dealing with this, if you're dealing with this by yourself, you can go ahead and try Sweat Block with a 20% off offer at sweatblock.com. Use the promo code locked on, 20% off to try it. There's a really good chance that this could be the thing that you've been looking for. You can buy it at sweatblock.com, get 20% off with the promo code locked on, or you can get it at Amazon and CVS. Today's show is also brought to you by Rock Auto. Now, I've been telling you about Rock Auto for a while. I know people who've been saving hundreds of dollars going to Rock Auto for everything that they need for their cars, their trucks. It's all right there on a very easy to use site, very easy to navigate catalog. And it's run by people who've been doing this for 20 plus years, treating people right when they need to get something, no matter how complicated or how simple it is. Do you know what's going on when you pop your hood? Can you go through your engine and figure out what's going wrong? Great. You can go to rockauto.com and save a lot on some very expensive parts. Are you somebody like me that I know how to put wipers on, I know how to change the headlights, I know how to get new floor mats? Then you can go to rockauto.com and save yourself plenty of money that way as well. It doesn't matter whether you're a pro or do-it-yourselfer. It doesn't matter what level. You can just go to rockauto.com and save a ton. No promo code necessary. The only thing you need to do is write locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? That's the only way they know that we sent you. So when you check out, you'll see a how did you hear about us box. Write locked on in there, and then they'll know that you came over from us, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. The Romeo Langford experience is kind of interesting here. You're from an outside perspective. We were here for draft night. We were here for him coming in, and the disappointments over and over again of he sprained his ankle. Oh, he fell again. He sprained that ankle again.
Mm-hmm.
He's got this thing. He's got that thing, and to constantly have those injuries, I'm kind of rooting for him just because all I'm rooting for is to have that real opportunity. But I don't know if he looks the same out there, if I'm projecting, or if I'm seeing something on the screen that's not there through the TV. He's sort of, to me, just existing for most of the games. And he's not like, I don't see him as a fluid kind of participant in the offense. I don't know. What are you seeing from him?
I think you're seeing someone. I think that's a good way to put it. I think it's just that he's not. Besides the dunk, he doesn't make a ton of I feel like a ton of flashy plays. So it's not like he's out there as much. I also think that I've been kind of joking with B-Rob about it actually. But he got a new haircut and he got a new number. So I was like, maybe Romeo's a new person now. So I think that's part of it. He talked a lot about just being able to work on his shooting, and obviously we saw that game winner against Atlanta. But that's an interesting observation. I haven't quite noticed it like that. I think I might look at it a little bit more at tomorrow's game against Orlando. But yeah, I think it's a new Romeo at least. I know B-Rob talked to him for his Q&A, and there seemed to be kind of maybe a little bit more of an air of confidence, I guess, is maybe a good way to put it, a way of just reinventing himself. I keep joking about it, but honestly, that might be the case. So it's obviously a crucial year. I mean, the injuries suck. I think I went to Michigan State, so I actually watched him at Indiana. And I remember the few games I watched him, the commentators are constantly yeah, this guy's dealing with this injury and this injury. And so I come here and they're like, he's dealing with this thing and this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I heard that back in college too. So it's just one of those tough things, I think, for, this 21-year-old kid.
Yeah. I just wonder, look, I know all about dealing with injuries. If any of my former teammates are listening here, and some of them do, they know for sure, oh yeah, John knows injuries. And sometimes you try to work through one and that leads to another and that leads to another. And for Romeo, he's just had such bad luck, like falling and having that wrist injury that needed surgery, and it happened to be on his shooting hand. Like, of all things, his shooting hand, that the one thing that you need for Romeo Langford to try to work on stuff. But I don't know. I like your point about a reinvention of Romeo Langford, the new hair, the new number. I didn't really quite put it like that. I mean, and I hate to put it this way, but like, I've had, girlfriends that, you're not feeling right. You want to have like a different, you kind of want to cleanse yourself of some things that are bad. You get a new hairdo. Like, that's something that they've done. And so, for that doesn't apply to just one gender. You could do it. Guy can do it too. Be like, hey, well, I can't do it, but most other guys can. And it'd be like, hey, I want to go from this look to that look. Maybe I want to be a blonde. Maybe I want to be maybe I do want to shave my head. So having a new number and a new look can be the beginning of a new Romeo. The problem is, Suichi, that Romeo's attitude, like not attitude, his personality is so chill that I don't know that he can be anything but extraordinarily chill. Like, there's no changing that. It's like repackaging the same. It's not like he can be intense now. It's not like he can be happy-go-lucky. He's just gonna be like some dude who has smoked 3 joints that day. Like, that's his personality. He's just gonna be like a chill guy. I'm not saying that he does, and if he does, whatever. Who cares? It's legal.
It's legal.
But like, that's his attitude, right? He's just kind of like a chill guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's too bad. I feel like we've seen like professional athletes who are like super chill. Like, I mean, you look at Kawhi, he doesn't get too hype or anything. I don't think it's like a bad thing. So yeah, I mean, that's a great point though, in terms of just being chill. At the same time though, I John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like that can also be a strength in the sense that you don't get too high or too low. I haven't seen anything or heard anything about Romeo getting like that. I guess I could be wrong. I haven't been covering him his whole pro career, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think it's just personality. I mean, he looked pretty happy on that dunk yesterday, so hopefully he can channel more of that energy.
I would say so, man. If you can't get hyped after that dunk, then you never will. Now, but yeah, like that's and this is the interesting dichotomy of sports fandom, covering sports. You're right. You're 100% right. That attitude serves him well. Like, over an 82 game schedule, screwing up, if you can really have a chill attitude and just put it behind you, and that, like you said, not too high, not too low. That mantra in the NBA is absolutely necessary. But, fans want to see a little hype. They want to see a little fire. They want to see somebody fist pump and, scream and, KG it up a little bit sometimes. And I'm not saying that that's going to hold him back. It's not going to hold him back, because you can be, like you said, an intense competitor while keeping that steely kind of, but here's the thing. It's not steely. It's just chill. It's not like intense. It's not like that squint, that quiet, bouncer squint that you're like, oh, I'm not going to mess with this dude. He's just like, I feel like Romeo's life mantra would be like, whatever, just move on to the next thing.
Now that you mentioned that, I remember I asked Romeo at one of the pre-summer league availabilities. I was like, hey man, is your like, how does this like impact your mental health in the terms of like all these injuries, and is there like frustration in that? I was like, is this mentally like freeing that you're like finally healthy and you can do stuff? And his answer, I was kind of like, not like surprised by it, but I was kind of intrigued. I was a little bit like, I think he said something like, yeah, not really, it's just kind of like, I can finally work on things. Like, I don't think, like, I'm sure there was like frustrations from the injuries, but it kind of gave me the vibe that like he wasn't like too like down or anything about it. Like, he was just like it was just something that happened. Obviously it sucks, but he's going to deal with it in a lot of ways. And I think that's another positive thing too, in the sense that you don't get too low when you're going through, COVID right after your wrist is finally good, you get COVID and then all these frustrations. But it seems like Romeo is just kind of like, okay, well, that sucks, but I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's kind of the vibe I got from him, at least.
No, totally. And this is what makes Romeo so interesting, because I will freely admit I'm not in that not too high, not too low mode. I get too high, I get too low, not to a manic level, but I freely admit that's one of the hardest things when I was playing. It was one of the hardest things for me to do. You carry when you carry that screwing up thing to the next thing, then you really start to feel that. I carry it now, man. Like I'll write something and maybe I maybe had a bad take or something like that, and like the next three things I write, I'm just like, oh God, please don't, And so I envy Romeo in a lot of ways for being that chill. I can't imagine being that chill. It's an interesting kind of personality to have for a professional athlete, because no one has ever accused him of not putting in the work. It's not a laziness kind of attitude. It's just kind of like a chill thing. So I personally, I would like to see Aaron maybe get one more game. Pritchard one more, I guess, because Pritchard's been awesome. Get Romeo in there. I'd like to see more Romeo just on his own without those guys. And let's see him just tell him, like, take over. We want to see you take over a quarter. See, what can you do? Carry us. Put him in lineups where everyone else is like a poor shooter or something, and be like, have Romeo look around and be like, oh, I got to do this now. Go back to Indiana. I got to do. All right, let me do. I want to see him do that more, because I've seen everything I need to see from Pritchard. Like, chill out. If anybody needs to chill, it's Pritchard. Relax. Enjoy Vegas. Going to come back to wrap up the show with Suichi Terada in just a moment. First, I got to tell you about BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. You want to bet on Summer League? Fine. Go for it. It's there. You want to bet on the WNBA? You want to bet on baseball? It's all right there. International sports. Go to BetOnline, create your username, create your password, create your profile, then use the promo code Locked On. That is going to get you a 50% welcome bonus when you make your first deposit after you sign up. So you do all of that stuff, deposit $200, you'll get a $100 welcome bonus with that promo code Locked On. So don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get into the game at BetOnline. Use that promo code Locked On. They are your online sportsbook experts. Please gamble responsibly. What are you hearing? Have you heard anything practice-wise or anything from the team that has, given you any sort of hints as to how much any of these guys are going to play, or are we going to see all of these guys play all of these games?
No, not too much. In terms of practice, though, one thing I was mildly intrigued by was Missoula was talking about how Yam was having like some troubles last week, and I think that was kind of reflected in the quotes that you heard from like Romeo and Peyton, where they were like, yeah, he's working, but there wasn't anything like, yeah, this guy, came from Israel, just like started like taking names and all these things and all that and all those
Right.
kinds of things. So I think that kind of tempered expectations. Obviously, he wasn't as flashy the second game as he was the first. But in
Sure.
terms of the other guys, I think they're I was actually a little surprised they played a little more than I thought yesterday on Tuesday, just because of just how game one went, and they played a lot. Obviously didn't play the end of the game just because it was a blowout. But like you said, John, I think they played like maybe one game. I was really curious coming into this personally, just like Romeo at point guard. Like, we heard a little bit about that, like from Brad last season, and it seemed like going into summer league, like Missoula and Romeo was really working on that. I don't think we've seen that. Like, we've seen that a little bit, but I was kind of surprised. Like, oh, maybe we won't see it as much. But part of that was, I guess, Peyton getting the ball a little bit more. So I think that's
Sure.
something I'm personally keeping my eye on. The next couple of games, if he does play in a what role too.
Yeah, they did do a little of Romeo at point guard in this last game. I didn't like it. I just don't think he's comfortable as the point guard necessarily, but we'll see. Like, that's what Summer League is for, right? Do things that you're uncomfortable doing. The Yam Madar stuff is super interesting because somebody asked Peyton about Yam before before they were coming out, and I thought it was funny. Like, Peyton's like, yeah, he's okay. Because what's he going to do? Like, Yam's competing for his job. Like, if Yam
Yeah.
comes in and is like, great, then Pritchard has got to split minutes. And he's like, yeah, whatever. But obviously Yam is a huge storyline here. Like, people have been like waiting after that first game. My God, the comments under the YouTube video after that first game were like, I said, it was good, but it wasn't enough to convince me to keep him. And that's where I still am. We'll see what happens after these next few games. But people after that first game were like, what? That's not fair, and so on and so forth. And then after the second game, it just all kind of quieted down.
I mean, I don't blame fans. I think, whenever you get a guy from overseas, you haven't watched him play. You've seen all the track record with the Spurs and their international players, and you got Ime, and you're like, it's very easy to make that connection. I think with Yam, it's a good thing just to temper expectations because he's still so young. And I mean, I know all these guys are young, but I want to say he doesn't turn 21 until like December. Like he still got a lot to work on. I think, and the thing about game one was that, yeah, he had that great start, but he didn't really play that much the second half. I feel like I think he finished with like 18 minutes off the top of my head. And obviously he did some good things. I think you tweeted out, like, I thought you put it out well. Like he was like very disruptive on defense. Like he was getting his hands on the ball. I don't think he ended up getting like a forced like 2 jump balls or something. So you saw that. And the biggest thing I think about Yam that was like, I remember I rolled up to game one, I'm like very jet lag. I'm, like I got in at like 2 a.m. West Coast time. So like 5 a.m. back home, and I had a game to cover the next day. So I was pretty tired, but I look out onto the court and I was like, wow, Yam looks like really small compared to some of these guys. And
yeah,
I think that's just like part of the development, honestly. Cause like you look at Juhan and he's big. Like he looks like an NBA athlete. And
that
you
kid
look
is
at
big.
Yam, and not to take anything away from him, I think he's very talented. But it's just like I still think he needs to put, maybe a little bit more weight, just to kind of look the part more. And that's kind of the development aspect of it too. I think, even if he doesn't necessarily come this, I know his plan is to play this season. We'll see on that. Obviously, with the Schroder signing, kind of puts things into disarray a little bit. But I think, the small things like that really, really go a long distance for an 82 game season.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I thought in the second game it was very much highlighted how much and this is why I asked Joe Mazzulla specifically about Yam's defense, because you can see he's picking up full court and he's reaching, and then next thing you know, the guy blows by him, or not, it gets by him, and it's a scramble to get back, or you've got to switch, and I've got to, stuff like that. Very, very fixable. Adding some weight, very easy to do. Giving him one more year overseas where he's not under contract, very advantageous for the Boston Celtics. Like, here's your pile of homework, nice manila folder. Here you go. Go do all of these things in Israel and then come back, and we'll get you into Summer League next year, and we'll kind of see where you are and probably bring you on. Because, and obviously the Schroder signing eliminates a huge opportunity for Yam. So they're going to play Marcus Smart. That's been determined. They're going to play Dennis Schroder. He didn't sign here not to play. Peyton Pritchard looks amazing in Summer League. Like, he very clearly is head and shoulders above, a lot of other guards here in Summer League. Where is Yam Madar going to get those minutes? So he's not going to come over to play in the G League. He's going to come over to contribute to the Celtics. So I think unless these next few games he just turns into a god, which, hey, who knows? I think he has an uphill battle, and I am going to be very curious to see how his relationships with the guys look. I mean, you've seen him on the bench. Have you noticed any sort of interactions? What's he look like interacting with these guys? I mean, he is trying to take some of their jobs.
That's a great way to put it. I actually asked him, I remember I was like, hey, what's it like with Peyton? He kind of gave, a pretty boilerplate answer. He's like, yeah, he's great, blah, blah, blah. I don't know exactly, don't read too much into that. Obviously, that was just an interview on, after practice or whatever it was. But in terms of just interactions, I think he's, I think he's fine. Like, I don't think anything's just like really like stuck out to me or anything. I also think one thing to like kind of consider is that, like, I remember after the first press conference, John, I don't think you heard it because it was after the Zooms, but he was like, yeah, sorry, my English kind of sucks. I got to work on it. I'm like, nah, man, you're good. But I think that's just something to keep in mind, like, it's not necessarily very easy. And I guess, like, there is a little bit of a language barrier, I would say, in terms of just like maybe like social cues or something like that, just because, like, speaking a second language, it's just how it is. So I don't know how that affects anything, in terms of relationships, but I also think it's something kind of like, okay, yeah, like, he's still working on his second, like he's still working on a second language. Like he said, so he's getting better at it, just speaking it every day. That's what he told me too in the interview. So,
Mhm.
but in terms of interacting with like teammates and stuff, I think I don't know, like it's on the bench at summer league, like
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that's just kind of like, hopefully, there's nothing too much to read into it, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen anything. Everybody seems to get along pretty well.
Hmm.
But you're always looking for these little things. You just don't know. You don't know what one guy's thinking, what another guy's thinking. So, um, but hey, look, I think Yam's got talent. I think he's going to be a member of the Boston Celtics at some point soon. It's just probably not going to be this season, which is fine. I know people might be excited for him, but it's fine. One thing that I love about summer league is sometimes not even watching necessarily the game, but what's going on around the team in the stands. Like I remember spending one summer league game watching Brad Stevens. This was probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago, uh, sitting by himself diagonally across from from the Celtics bench, and the game was going on. I missed 10 minutes of the game easily, just watching Brad, and people just come up and you tap them on the shoulder or say hi, and all of those interactions. Have you seen anything kind of interesting going on in the stands? I know Brad's there. Did I
Hmm.
see him sitting with Danny Ainge?
Yeah, yeah. Danny was there. Ime was there. I think actually it went like Danny, Brad's son, Brad, then Ime. I think it was like that order on like courtside or
Yeah.
something for game two. I think Brad was sitting like way up in the bleachers actually for game one. I want to say I think like B Rob or someone sniped him from the stands or something. So yeah, I mean you see a lot of that. It's I think courtside is kind of fun because you see Danny Ainge, you see Brad, you see Ime. I caught a few of the assistants. I want to say Will Hardy and Ben Sullivan were both there.
Mhm.
A few seats away from them, you see Grant Williams, and I think Jalen was there too. So
Yeah.
there's like quite a big like Celtics contingent out here. And I mean, I think that's how it is for every team. I want to say like John Morant maybe was like sitting behind like the media section yesterday. I wasn't sure
Yep.
if that was him. I was like, is that John? Why is he sitting next to the media section? So it was just like I was like, these aren't good seats. You should go like courtside or something, man. But yeah, yeah,
Good
those
job, Morant.
interactions are cool too.
Go get a good seat, bud. Um, My I love this because this is such an easy gimme for public relations for players because you get to go to Vegas, you get to go party, you get to do all the fun things. All you got to do is go show up for a couple of games,
Yeah.
and it's whoa, man, Jaylen Brown, look at him in Vegas supporting the team. And you couple of cutaways, couple of pictures, shows up at a practice to do some shooting, which is great. He's getting his work in. Like
Mhm.
he's actually doing what an NBA player does. But afterwards, he is in Las Vegas, certainly partying with other NBA guys, which is hilarious to me because a guy like Grant Williams gets dinged for being, showing a picture of himself in Aruba. But he's
Mhm.
probably doing all the same work. Wake up in the morning, do all your work. You can find a weight room in Aruba. You can find a basketball court in Aruba, do all your stuff, then go to the beach. But
Mhm.
the perception is, oh, he's on a beach in Aruba. He's not working. Jaylen Brown shows up to Las Vegas, Party City, one of America's finest party cities. I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of Las Vegas. Is at the game supporting the team, absolutely 100% supporting the team. But certainly partying just as much as anybody who's on vacation. It's such an easy win for players to be seen courtside and to earn the love of the fans, which good for them. I think
Yeah.
good for players for getting those easy wins.
I think the NBA does it well because, like, I kind of view summer league as the same as the NFL Combine and Indy, but like the Combine is like it's cold in Indy and you're in the Midwest. There's not obviously the players aren't showing up for
Sure.
all these draft picks are going to take their jobs. It's a little bit different, but like all the execs are there and they're like obviously as we've read and heard about the Combine and NFL, they pretty much do the same thing in terms of partying. But I think that the NBA does it better though because like the players can show up like you said in Vegas and it's just like kind of a maybe an easily more accessible location.
Mhm.
And so I think everyone just wins in that scenario. Players, execs, agents, scouts, everyone wins. It's just
Everybody wins, and
you know
everybody's in Vegas. Now,
no
under
one.
normal circumstances, they do the Team USA mini camp after Summer League. So not only do you
Mhm.
have the guys who want to come in, they have the NBA events there in Vegas. Like it becomes NBA Central. Everybody's in Vegas for something. So normally the big wigs, like the LeBrons come in for Team USA. You come in a few days early, you get some partying done. You go sit at a Lakers game, like couple years ago, you see them courtside watching Lonzo. And so it's a good time, man. I will leave this. First of all, how many summer leagues have you covered?
This is my first one. Never
Oh,
been to
man.
Vegas actually. First Vegas
This
experience.
I'm going to go old man on you. Um, I can't even remember how many years ago it was, probably 5 or 6 years ago, before all 30 teams got there. It was like a 14 team, 16 team summer league. You still had the Orlando Summer League going on.
Yeah.
Salt Lake still goes on in Salt Lake, but it was a little bit bigger. They had other options. So not every teams used to be able to pick. We're going to go to Orlando. We're going to go to Vegas. Some teams did both, but it was usually a split. I loved the Orlando Summer League, by the way. No fans. It was in their practice gym. It was very elbow to elbow. You like walk by. Larry Bird's walking by. Kevin McHale's walking by. It's all like super, super close. But the old Vegas Summer League, before it became 30 teams, the games would be done by 5 or 6. You'd go home. You go back to your hotel room, do the podcast after the games, crack a few beers, take your shower, head back out, and all of the executives and the agents and everything, they're all kind of hanging because 8, 9 o'clock, everybody's done. Now you get to go out to these parties and these events and these things. Then you get to talk and schmooze and all of that. Now games are going till what, like 7, 8 o'clock at night?
I think even later than that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was a game after Detroit Houston yesterday, and that ended at like 8.
There was a game after that? No,
I think so. Yeah, I think it was at like 8 p.m. tip, and I'm like, whoa, okay.
Yeah,
that's a long day.
I was out there for the last summer league. They obviously didn't do one last summer, so it was 2 summers ago, and they had all 30 teams. And by the time we were done, that was the summer league with the earthquake, by the way. That was the Zion.
Oh, okay. Whoa, okay.
Yeah. So I was in Thomas and Mack for an earthquake. I was like, I felt like the thing kind of like drop a little bit. I was like, what was that? And I see like the speakers swaying, and I'm like, get me out of here. I'm done. But
Ooh,
yeah, that was fun.
That.
But like I'd be with Tom Westerholm when Tom and I were working for MassLive, and we'd get back to our hotel and it'd be 9, 10 o'clock. And we're like, I don't feel like going out anywhere. Executives are probably tired. Like you don't have that same schmoozing opportunity. So it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. So the good old days. Oh well. So. But hey, you still get to cover summer league. You're in Vegas. You're being paid to go in Vegas and watch basketball. So that's really cool.
Charming job. It's a charming job. That's what I tell all my friends who I see here.
It's something, man. Well, again, welcome to the beat. I'm very happy to have you here. It's Suichi Terada at Suichi Terada. You can see the spelling in the descriptions on the podcast, and you see his name right there on the YouTube. So follow him on Twitter, please. His work's at MassLive. Very happy to have you on board, Suichi, and thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for listening, watching on YouTube, if that's what you're doing. Another Summer League game on Thursday, so I will be back to wrap up that. So no mailbag this week, just going to be covering the game and wrapping up the week. It's a Monday through Friday podcast, so if you're new, come on over, subscribe, listen to the show Monday through Friday, make it part of your daily routine on your way to work, on your way home from work, walking the dog. Whatever it is, you're generally going to get a 30-minute or so podcast, 40-minute or so podcast, and you're going to get that Monday through Friday. If you're new on the YouTube side, click that subscribe button. It's very easy. Then you can get it as soon as I drop it. Before I even tweet it out, you'll know that I've dropped the show. And comments, review, all of that stuff. But most importantly, really most importantly, share the podcast. When people ask you what they should be listening to, when people say, hey, I'm so sick of sports talk radio. They don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the Celtics. I'm so sick of the discourse. Tell them you need to be listening to the Locked On Celtics podcast. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network.